Hello, everyone. So we just kind of launched a poll there. So feel free. You're more than welcome to answer any of those if you want or skip that. But thank you, everyone, for joining Breaking Down Racial Barriers Roundtable Discussion. My name is Sam Rayner, and I am the Industry Development and Membership Coordinator for the Canadian Independent Music Association, CIMA. First of all, the series is on a national platform with a national audience. And with deep respect, we would like to acknowledge and honor the land we are meeting on is traditional territory of many nations across Canada. Now, to give you a bit of information about CIMA, we are a national trade association. So we're here to represent the interest of the Canadian independent industry. And our members consist of businesses across Canada, so such as independent record labels, we have managers, publishers, recording studios, and any other independents in the world or in that world. Also, if artists are running their own kind of business, that's related to that too. CIMA represents the industry in a handful of ways by advocating for the industry, creating export opportunities, and hosting professional development sections like this. And we strive to represent on a national level that properly reflects the diversity in communities that participate and contribute to our sector. And as a first step to a long road towards establishing an equitable and inclusive industry, this series has been designed for everyone, businesses, artists, and music industry associations like CIMA to listen to and to learn from lived experiences of Black working professionals we work with every day. BDRB is a CIMA project in joint partnership with Ian and Click, and they've worked tirelessly on programming and ensuring the format of these conversations. So they make sure that they address many different intersections of identity. We could not have done it without you guys, so a big thanks to Ian and Click for creating this. And a big thanks to our CIMA's administrative coordinator, Matthew Baydu, for his assistance on this entire series. We work to mention funding. We would like to mention our funding support the Government of Canada, Factor, and Ontario creates. And every week we actually have an episode partner. And the goal of this is we want organizations to get involved with these conversations, to listen to it, to help promote, and to just be a part of it. And for episode 6, we would like to thank Music Canada for their episode as them being an episode sponsor. So thank you, Music Canada. And if there's any other associations or organizations that want to be a part of it, we are closing to an end to the series, but we're also happy to have as many people a part of the 10-part series as possible. And also just to mention Advance, who've been supporting the 10-part series as well. So thank you. And I would like to pass it on to Click.
Thanks, Sam. My name is David Cox, also known as Click. Been in the business for over 20 years and many facets of the business. And I'm happy and really proud of what we've been doing so far with these roundtables. And on one of our supporter organizations is Advance. Advance is the Black Music Business Collective, and I highly suggest checking them out. Go to advancemusic.org if you want to get more information on them. And lastly, this is a roundtable discussion that came together from me and Ian, talking about the lack of Black music professionals in our industry that actually come together and mobilize and talk about the issues we have and try to figure out how to, fix them, right? So I'm going to pass it over to my partner in crime here, Ian. Your mic.
Terrible. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Ian Andre Espinay, and this is Breaking Down Racial Barriers, as you have heard. It is a 10-part panel discussion on anti-Black racism in the industry. Click is Martin, I am Malcolm. So we are here to get to the bottom of barriers to Black artists today and discuss anti-Black racism in the artist space. I would like to take a moment to get you all to introduce yourselves. Let's go to the Queen. That would you be with the long braids? Beautiful.
Hi. Hey, guys. Wagwan. Oh, the Queen, that's me? whoever named me that, thank you very much. I hope a big fat check goes along with it. I've been waiting 22 years. Holla. Yeah, I'm Jully Black, Julianne and Dara Gordon. I am daughter of Agatha, daughter of Lloyd, Jane the French girl, singer, songwriter, and storyteller, cultural connector. And I'm here to lend my voice, to learn, to listen, to engage, and to add value.
Haviah.
Hey, how's everybody doing? I am an artist from the GTA. I'm a singer, rapper, producer, DJ. I consider myself to be a learner of many things. So I'm interested to contributing to the conversation today, as well as learning from the other contributors to this conversation.
Let's take it to South Africa.
Sorry, I couldn't remember the shift command thing. My name is Zaki Ibrahim. I'm in Vancouver at the moment, not South Africa, but I am an artist that has been based in a few different places, but my come up in my musical artistry has been in Toronto. And then, you know, coming from Vancouver originally, and then to South Africa and to Toronto. And I am a musical artist, and you know, I'd like to call myself multidisciplinary because I'm interested in all arts. I've been doing this for over 15 years, about 15 years, professionally and full time. So feel blessed to be able to do that and continue that. So yeah, I'm blessed to be here in this conversation as well. I was called yesterday to be a part of it, and I'm glad that I was.
Okay, let's go to the Twin Islands of TNT.
That'll be me alone?
That'll be you alone.
Yeah, my name is Kerwin Dubois. Singer, songwriter, producer, crazy guy. I mean, music is 90% of my life, and I represent soca music, Caribbean music, but always willing to learn and grow from, you know, being around like-minded individuals who are not afraid of experimenting and fusing sound, you know, for that main mission of world music. Yeah.
Okay. Duns.
What up, what up, what up? Can you hear me? I think you can. Also, my name is Denz. I am a singer, songwriter, director, editor. I'm in a band named the OBGMs. I guess I'm your black rock punk alternative music representative for this, and I'm very, very happy to be included in this conversation. Big shout out to Click. Big shout out to all of you. Very, very happy to be here, and happy to learn from all of you as well. I'm sure we're going through a lot of the same things.
Quest.
What's up? I'm LordQuest, producer, songwriter, A&R. Been doing this for about 15, 20 plus years. I'm really happy to be here amongst good company. I think this is going to be a great discussion. A lot of good points are going to be touched on, and a lot of education is going to be shared.
And I would like to say that TOBi and Tika were unable to make it today, but I'm going to hand off to Mr. Jermaine Clayton.
Appreciate you, Ian. Thank you, Click and Ian, for putting this together into CIMA. And I'm Jermaine. I'm the president of Awesome Productions and Management. And I'm also sitting on the board for the MMF and for Factor on the community side. And I'm really looking forward to getting in discussion with everyone today. So I want to jump right into it, guys. You know, this entire series has been a great way of shedding light on all the aspects of the industry, but it really is about you as the artist. You make up the reason why all of us have a job and have something that we're trying to do. So it's really great that we have an opportunity to speak to you and to get your thoughts on some of these matters. So when we look at labels from the independent level right into the majors, we're going to just take a journey together and touch on all the aspects that are necessary in growth. So first to start off with is the basics of funding. Is there any, in your opinion, so let's start with Quest. In your opinion, is there a systematic level of racism that is limiting Black artists from receiving funding?
Yeah, I would say there is, because I feel like there's a natural inclination to do what's familiar to you. And if the people that are in front of the conversations aren't necessarily familiar with what it is that we have to represent or present, they're more inclined to look the other way. So I feel like there is definitely part of that in the equation.
Definitely, absolutely. I want to throw it to Haviah. Haviah, what are you thinking as, you know, a young female Black artist?
Yeah, I just think like LordQuest, you said it better than I can, and definitely, but like as an artist trying to get funding, like I have been, I guess, lucky enough to be given some opportunities in the latter part of my career, but the majority of my career was trying to get resources in order to create content that people can hear, have videos to back it, be able to actually have production, work with engineers and have funding for that. And a lot of my earlier stuff was favors that, you know, people believed in the talent, but it was kind of on other people's time. And yeah, I was unable to get the music out there because funding wasn't there. I definitely think what you said, LordQuest, is just, if it's not familiar to you, it's very difficult to know how to, or I guess that's the perception, is that, and also the majority, in terms of Canada, like in this infrastructure, the majority is not generally who we are and the stories that we have to tell. And so the people that are giving us that window, the people that have that door that you can go through, have no real necessarily identity with those stories. And so it's like, also, what is the purpose or the risk to put something like this forward? So I definitely think it's a difficulty and a setback.
Absolutely. Densil, like, I mean, you can't get more unfamiliar territory than Black, you know, punk rock. And, you know, if you guys, any of you that are watching right now, if you need to check out the OBGMs and you need to check out what Densil is doing. But in your opinion, do you see that there's been a bit of a limiting or a barrier when you're trying to look for funding to really start what you're trying to do and hone your craft?
Well, absolutely. I think there absolutely is a barrier, and I have to just amplify what like LordQuest and what I was saying, particularly the part about familiarity. I feel a lot of people that have been obtaining funding are familiar and are safer. And when you're doing dangerous and different music and being a dangerous and different person and pushing boundaries on content, it can make maybe some people uncomfortable as to what they would like to support. As a Black rock and alternative musician from Toronto, that's been doing this for 12 years, the other person I seen on the scene was Sate. Like, it's a small community of people that are all looking to push types of boundaries with unfamiliar sounds, and, you know, preparing an application for something like that to a board of people that may not understand our stories, may not understand what we're trying to do or what we represent as well beyond the sound, is definitely been troubling for our whole career. And it just literally leads me to believe as to who you need to shake hands with, who you need to be paired with to be seen. And that's how I feel about that.
Absolutely. And, you know, leading into that, you know, one of the other aspects of what your brand is your team, right? Your team is the ambassador of your music, who you represent, what you're trying to speak about. So, you know, once funding is even being discussed, how important is it to have a Black person working as part of your team within the companies that you work with, be it a booking agent or a label or a management? I'll throw that one to my man in TNT, to Kerwin.
Well, as far as funding for me, it was intimidating. I did it once, and I really didn't want to do it because I didn't even see myself falling into a category. You know, we don't even have a categorized genre of music we classed as world music, you know. So me just kind of being fresh to Canada, because when I came to Canada and I settled, I said, you know what, let me apply for some funding so I could get my feet off the ground. And when I look at the criterias and the people who, you know, because they have images that they use on these websites, it was a bit intimidating for me and it was a deterrent. So I just went and hustled and did whatever little job and buy a piece of equipment bit by bit and just built myself from there. I mean, I would really have loved to be given that support to become something as a, you know, a Black Caribbean person or a Black person, period. But it was intimidating. Yeah.
Definitely. Would love to hear, back to you again, Densil, your feelings on just the team aspect though, like the people that are working with you at, you know, the labels, management, the people that are working to kind of spread the message about your music. Is that an important thing to have, you know, a Black person to be working with you as well?
Is it important for me to have Black people on my team particularly? Yeah. Absolutely. Is it important to the topic of funders? Do they want to see Black people on your team? I don't think they care. I don't think they really care, or who's on your team or what you represent. I think they only care about the numbers and the money, right? For me personally, I think doing things and uplifting my people is the most important thing to me in my life, and finding a way to find Black people involved, people of color involved, to uplift ourselves is what we need to do. In terms of like funding and who presents you to the people that unlock the bag, I think in our career, going from independent to assigned to act, we've had varying levels of success in both ways. It seems that the bag is automatically unlocked though with the latter way, which is with white people on your team, particularly white men on your team. And it would be very interesting to see the data on that, is what I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Haviah, I mean, for you, I mean, we got a chance to really talk about the fact that you've been doing this since 2009. And before that, up until 2017, you were self-managed. You had to put out your records on your own. You know, you worked the project yourself, knocking down doors. You know, how was that experience? Trying to go for things like funding, trying to go for media, PR. How was that for you at the beginning of your career?
Yeah, I would say I met a wall at most efforts that I made. Like, I got really good at making music that nobody heard, which I guess in a way, once they heard it, it was like, okay, the talent is already there. But it was a long road of just trying different things, trying like different avenues of rapping over different types of beats, whether it's covers or, oh, I'm gonna blend in the singing. Let me show them how, like, the harmony work. Let me show this, that. It just didn't really matter because there was like no access point. And I remember, like I was saying to you earlier, like being a part of a video where I was rapping and it went sort of viral on Facebook, that kind of was my understanding of like the business, because I started attending panels and it's like the vice president of Factor now recognizes me based on the strength of this video and, you know, just these individual things. And I started to realize, oh, like you actually have to like knock individual doors down. And I realized that it wasn't only about the music that you're making or how good it is or, you know, how good your songwriting is, but also like the people that are accessing it. And yeah, so for me, like it was just many, many years of thinking it was really about the craft and really trying to fine tune that. And then realizing that without the business understanding, and not even just the understanding, but like the networking and the connectiveness of it all, and the fact that like without that there is really no avenue. And obviously that window is even smaller in certain regions than other regions. You just start to realize, you know, certain genres will do better in certain regions as well. So I had to learn that hip hop, you know, me doing that and me also being a woman in that, there were all these additional walls that were put up that made it more difficult for like these access points to get it, you know? So yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm still dealing with that now, but it was definitely a lot harder between 2009 and 2017.
Definitely. And I mean, talking about self-managed and really working on and owning your own business, you know, the queen is, as Ian said it earlier, Jully Black. I mean, you run your shit. You run everything as far as your business is concerned. Were there any drawbacks, do you feel, or do you think to be looked upon or to be perceived as the one that's running the shit when you were starting out?
Well, 22 years. So the first, I've been self-managing for the last 10. And I would say association got me funding early out. Well, first I had a street manager, let's just put it that way. So he was resourceful. He knew how to make that money stretch and work for us. But with my second manager, who also managed Hoxley and Serena Ryder, was able to get funding through association. You know what I mean? Really, to be totally transparent. And where I hit the wall is when we parted ways, and realizing that my membership wasn't because my approvals wasn't really because of my talent and gift. It was because of my association. And that's when all the no's started to happen. That's when I didn't get funding for videos to this day. In fact, I stopped getting added to radio to this day. In fact, remortgaging my house, doing things to really keep the music, keep the song in my heart going, recognizing that when I started singing at 6 years old, so that Paul Jessup could like me. It wasn't so that the Adrian youth could send me to radio. You know, God gave me a gift, and there's a healing tool. And so, but I went through a lot of trials for sure. The funding, what I can say though, is later on in the last 5 years, I would say, and receiving any sort of funding, it became a bright spot. It was a win. Like every win on my own as JBE, Jully Black Entertainment Inc., I appreciated it that much more. Didn't matter if it was a $500 from SoCan or $1,000 from CIMA or wherever. It was a bright spot. And I think that because there's been many bags over the years and different layers and levels, and for those of us who've been in the business for as long as I have, there were bags, like $250,000 bags, $100,000 bags, videos for, there's bags, right? And so when that changed, as the recession hit in 2008, and things just changed, period, point blank. And you started seeing, for me, I was thinking, okay, why is Feist still getting, video fact? Does she need it? Why does it? I just started to even ask myself certain questions that I realized people were going to ask about me. And so I had to sit in a seat of empathy and say, okay, well, I'm independent now. I went from being with a major label, transitioned, asked to be released, hitting all those walls at radio, etc., and realizing that I indeed needed that funding to keep the song in my heart, to keep that song in my heart, to be able to fund it. And so I went through different stages of feeling like funding was welfare. I used to say, I don't, this damn welfare now, they want to know my blood type. They want to know everything about me to give me $500. And so I stopped applying. I was tired of getting the no's, and I diversified my portfolio. I recognized that I have many talents. I went biblical and said, I'm not going to bury my talents anymore. I'm not going to use one talent anymore. I'm going to rob from Peter and pay Paul. I'm going to host this and speak there. I'm going to become a life coach. I'm going to do the things that also has kept the song on in my heart, has given me lyrics, and it ended up being able to invest in my song. And, many know my mom passed away. And so, her last breath became my first breath, and things just didn't matter anymore. It just didn't matter. I wasn't looking for validation. The song of gratitude just stayed in my heart. And so I just asked people to meet me where I'm at now. Call me a granola, call me a hippie, tree hugger, whatever you want to call me. I'm that person that just wants to keep the song in my heart. I just want to keep the song in my heart. It's frustrating. I feel for the generation that it's almost like those who work 9 to 5, you go to university, college, etc., and you think there's going to be a pension. There's no pension. There's no pension. We are our pension. We're our pension, right? So just like being an artist, like we are our number one investor. And I think pride has to sit down, fling away pride to the side. We'll start realizing that we have more abundance than we realize. We set the trend, we set the tone, we validate. And now it's really more so about coming together and getting those people to having those people in those places that aren't intimidated to write the grant, building the team up. That's like, yeah, I have a grant writer. Okay, we failed, so to speak, X amount of times. Why? What was wrong with my application? Tell me. Let me know so I can pivot on the next time, et cetera, et cetera.
I love that. Zachy, would you like to touch on anything on the funding side and your experiences with it?
My very first experience with funding in this country my first grant that I received was in 2009. And that was the same year that I kind of left the industry in a funny way. Like it kind of like the experience, that was the same year, not the same year, but it was being signed to a major for the first time. Getting a PR, getting like all of those things newly, like that kind of thing. And I feel like, before that, like Jully was saying, like it kind of felt like I was very kind of critical, like, no, I don't want to get stuck in this welfare system because I know they're going to take your blood type. I know they're going to do this, so I was wary of it. And then I did get, as soon as I signed, it was with the team that I applied for this funding. Actually, I had applied before, but it was the first time I got the thing. So obviously that helped. But from there, when I got the funding, went on tour, went on a world tour, went on, all these things started happening. And then it was short-lived. My relationship with that major was short-lived, and I had to clean up this grant situation, excuse me, where I was trying to email people at the label. I was trying to like pick up the pieces where like, guys, I need this letter because I know there was some like street teaming that happened here, which had nothing, like, I don't know, my street team and their street team was completely different. There was stuff that was paid for here, but I couldn't get any of the paperwork, and I ended up running away from the grant, and it dragged on. So my experience with it wasn't like, the one to really be the example. And 2009 was the last time, and the next time that I got a grant was in 2017. I then, I stuck to my street management. I was self-managed for a while. I was, I had friends that were helping me through things, and I was like, no, I was, what once bitten kind of thing with I knew it, the Canadian music is held down. Canadian Black music is held down by this system. I felt that because although there's this window and that kind of thing, it's so limiting, and it's so toxic for the Black music community, the system that it is. And even with the checking of the boxes and that kind of thing that happens, and that slowly happened a little bit more through the years, even with that, it's still toxic and still harmful because of the dynamic of I think.
Of course.
So yeah, as far as funding, and then 2017, got another grant after that. I'm newly signed now with another team, an independent label, that I'm learning about it now. I'm learning kind of how it works, and I'm asking, who, I'm not sure I kind of became disinterested as to who's who. Like, who's CIMA? What do they do? Who's Guitarist? What do they do? Who's this? I was just like, this is just the way it is, and I'm just gonna do it this way, this other way. I'm gonna leave the country and see how it happens there.
Of course.
And then be a mystery for a bit to Canada, because I don't even know how to navigate that thing without being a part of it.
It gets confusing without, actually understanding how the cogs and all the wheels work. So that makes sense. It definitely makes sense. It could be at the beginning. Yeah.
Right. You there's access points and all of that kind of stuff, but it's a bit more than that. Like, it's tedious because you're not hanging out like with the people that know people that write the grants, that give the grants, that that kind of thing. Anyway,
so network, definitely. And I just want to invite everyone. Sorry to cut you off for a second, Zach. I want to just invite everyone, because again, this is a panel. This is with all of you. So unmute yourself, guys. feel free. You want to jump in on something, you have a little something you want to say. I am definitely no director in any way, shape, or form. Jump in, say what you want, say your piece. You know, we're all here to create that discussion and have it together. But please, Zach, you can continue. Jackie, did you want to finish and close up with?
Oh yeah, no, I thought we were all unmuting and starting another story.
No. Everyone's unmuting, but it's still on you. It's still on you.
So I think that there's been a thing where, and I've spoken to peers as well, that they're just, for a moment there, we're just getting it was like becoming like, just don't bother. Build your own stuff. The more resourceful you can be, the more creative, the more you put your talents to better use anyway. And, you know, if you're using these things as a crutch, then, you know, so I feel like a lot of my peers and like, even like, you know, artists that are kind of just starting to build their stuff now have gotten ready to build their own thing. You know,
got you.
We had become prolific. We had continued to make songs and that kind of thing, and not depended on like, you know, where's it going to go? Because when you can, you know, when you write a grant, it's like, what is going to happen here? Who's going to be in the room? What do you did? It's like, how do you know? You don't know that kind of thing. It's gonna.
Yeah, you want a little less to be about the tedious steps and more of an open space to actually create.
And you want to be protective also of your gifts and your talents, and your, you know, keep it in a healthy pH, you know.
Absolutely.
So rather just, never mind, I don't need to know all of that industry stuff. And, you know, I think a lot of artists do that. And if it's not natural and you're not hanging out with people that, you know, then
of course
there's a separation.
Of course. I want to shift focus though a little bit more around teams and the importance of having you know, individuals, because again, you know, and I circle this again, that it's so important to have, for some, to have individuals that work within certain aspects of your career, be it for the PR, who are, you know, going out to media companies or going out to radio to talk about what you're doing. But I wanted to throw a question on back to Jully. Do you think that there are a lot of booking agents, promoters, talent buyers that are Black, and do you feel that that is a space for opportunities for live music in Canada? Do you think that that's an important aspect?
I think there's always space for us if we want to occupy it. I think that so many, I look at it like, for example, my engineers, my front of house or my monitors. When I toured with Shaggy and others back in the day with Jay, I was like mesmerized because I saw so many Black engineers. I was like, yeah, like islands know what's up, like Black man, Black woman, etc. And it wasn't something that I experienced there. Now my front of house and my monitors are both Black men. However, it didn't. It let me realize that music, just like the spirit, really has no color. And I say that to say, if they're great, and on the flip side too, this is why I'm realizing, like, why aren't Black men and women invited into the engineering space? There aren't enough of us actually wanting to, studying it, learning on the job. A lot of my sound people didn't go to school for it. They're just brilliant. You know, I don't sight read. It's just a gift. So it became a thing for me eventually when I had to, there's Byron. Hey, Byron. I had to say he was on my team. When I realized I had to start to go out into the audience and calibrate the room for myself, but it just gave me what my band calls dog ears. I decided not to depend on those people. The audience, I have to trust what the audience is going to get, but what are they really getting? And so to really invite myself into those other spaces. And so booking agents, I've never had a Black booking agent. I finally prayed and got a Christian one, which is as close to Black. Holla. We call ourselves a God team, not a good team. We pray over everything. But Marquis says Jully Black. And that's one thing that my manager taught me at 12 years old, that if the band is shit, it's Jully's band. If the manager is garbage, it's Jully's manager. If the makeup's garbage, Jully's makeup artist. My name is in front of everything. So therefore, what standard are you setting so that there's an excellence that goes everywhere in front of you, even if you're not there? And so that's where I had to, you know, kind of do away with the color vibes and get to know each role, and then see who I would qualify to sit in those seats, you know, and finally grow up. I'm 42 years old. Like, I think as artists, we tend to be treated as children, especially when you have a manager or a label. We're always kind of, artistry kind of ends up being like you're 17 for life. It's like a dog. Someone said a dog is a baby that never grows up. Like, yeah, it's true. My dog is pretty immature. But realizing, hey, I'm a big woman. I'm a big woman. And so I've invited myself into conversations that before would have been handed over to that person to handle. I remember recently a team member said, let's be nice or something. It was a microaggression. I said, what does that mean? As opposed to what? Let's be nice. What are you talking about? You know, so it's just really pulling up. You got to wheel up the people when it comes time to, and if it doesn't sit right with you, black, white, especially now, black people, our voices are amplified. We don't have to be enraged, but we could check them. Say, what did you mean by that? Just ask a question. I've been asking mad questions. What do you mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And just sit down and let them answer you. You know what I mean? It's nice. It's a nice thing. Try it on for size.
I'm definitely gonna try it. Densil, we got a chance to really talk again about the Ooh Baby Give Me Mores and what you're going through with as a punk rock band. Do you feel that there are limits around how black music is defined in Canada? Especially
yeah, absolutely. Like, just to chime in on a little bit on what the Queen said, I think a lot of it, before we even get to what the OBGMs are going through, is more, I think color is important because of representation. I know for me, when I got into rock music, one of the things that pushed me over the top was I saw a black man on stage, and a black Caribbean guy on stage from where I'm from. It was like a soca party with rock. It was crazy. And I was like, wow, I got to see myself. I didn't just get to see myself as a basketball player, which is what I wanted to be up until that point. I didn't get to see myself as a rapper, which is what I wanted to see as myself, which is what I saw myself up to that point, because the representation just wasn't there for me. I never aspired to be it because I never had anybody really to look at that was doing it like I would have done it. I think that's kind of just how it works with like engineers as well. Like, I went to school for music, and like everybody was white. Everybody was like man as well. If you don't see, like, from a young standpoint, like this is just maybe my own bias, but from a young standpoint, I think if you don't see anybody in that space that looks like you, it's hard to really envision yourself in that space. And I think that's part of the reason why black people are the most and fullest occupants of R&B and hip hop. We dominate that market because, one, it's our music, like all of the music is, but two, we see ourselves in it, and it keeps a nice little system of it going, of great music. But for rock music, we don't see ourselves in it. We're not there, and we're definitely not invited to any of the mainstream tables. So it's hard for little black boys, little black girls, little black anybody to aspire to be anything around that if they haven't seen anything really like that, in my opinion. So for us, that's kind of how it's really broke down. Hopefully that answered the question.
Well, actually, if I could jump in on that, if you don't mind. Interestingly enough, about seeing ourselves, I'm glad you mentioned that, Densil, because there was no Jully. I saw nobody that looked like me coming up in Finch, singing soulfully, being pretty rough around the edges. And so it's interesting being a very young pioneer. I didn't even want to hold on to that title of pioneer. I just knew that some sort of trail needs to be blazed. I married hip hop with Cardi and the rest of them. But I think what people didn't recognize and the industry didn't recognize is that being a pioneer doesn't mean that you don't need help. You need help. So sometimes I was given the hat of, she's the strong one. She's a Canadian institution. Call Jully. She's the life of the party. Jully will get it done, not realizing that, hey, my reservoir financially too, yeah, but there's like the reservoir of courage even. We get tired. I got tired. You know, recognizing there weren't anybody really there to say, what did you do when? And that's why I'm so appreciative of spaces like this, and why I'm big on mentorship, because you cannot beat that firsthand experience. And if more of us would share the experience, share the tough times, the trials and the triumphs, and say, hey, there's a landmine right there, brethren, you're gonna lose your foot, jump over it. Not let me see if she have the strength or I have the courage. Like, there's something culturally that still needs to be worked on. Side conversation, whole other panel. But recognizing that when you don't see yourself, my mom used to say, God lives in your imagination. And I tell you, so many of us, our imaginations have ended up going dark because we didn't see ourselves. And so vision, and more vision over sight. I had to really submit myself to having vision and do away with sight. If you can't see it, oftentimes many think you can't achieve it. And so it was really took going deep into meditation and deep into vision. Like, what's the vision for my life? Vision, what's the vision of my career? The vision for my family, vision for my country, vision for my industry. What's the vision? Do we have a vision for each other? If I don't win, and if Zacky's to me, it's like Serena and Venus. If Zacky's got it, it's a win for Jully. That's what it is. That's how it should be. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And then to have the funding on top of that.
Yeah, definitely. And we want to make sure that, when we look at where and how far we want to go, there still are these things that are in front of us. And that's kind of why we're talking about that. When we talk about promoters, or we talk about talent buyers, I mean, as much imagination as we want to have, if there isn't someone that either A, understands the music, the message, everything that you are bringing, that's an end road, no matter what. So
well, I think if there isn't somebody that believes in the music, the message, right?
True.
I think it's a belief, it's a system. We spoke about this earlier, that has to be built and developed. It's a belief system. And I think that once there is somebody that believes in you enough, somebody believed in me enough to put me on the road with Yellow Card, singing Sweaty Your Brow. Nobody understood it. But music is the universal language. And when I got in front of those 2,000-3,000 people, in front of Yellow Card, their audience, it made sense. And a bridge started to be built one by one by one. So I don't think I think we are the biggest teachers. Sometimes it's exhausting because we're forever teaching, especially in the time that we're living in now. Everybody wants to know about our blackness. Teach me about your whiteness. I'd really love to know. But recognizing that they don't have to understand it yet. Believe it, believe in it, be a co-conspirator, put your money on it. Put your money on it. Will you make that sacrifice for me if you believe in me that much?
Champions.
If you champion, that's right, Zachy, right? But I think many of us have been waiting for them to understand it. And then we just dead air with it.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Everyone, like within your career, when you look at being signed to independent or major, and there's no Black people in the booking agency and no representation, have you dug in your heels? Like, have you been like, I don't trust this? Because if I were to reflect on the first major experience, which kind of came not out of nowhere, it was like a process, but there were no people of color, there were no Black people, and I was like, this isn't going to make any sense. I mean, this is an amazing opportunity. Wow, okay, this is going to be crazy, but how is this going to work? Because the people aren't actually listening to my music, hearing it, and when it came to marketing, when it came to booking, when there was no, so I feel like we were talking, a few of us mentioned, it took time to build content, it took time to build and build and build, but I feel like it also took time because it's like, where's my team? within the building, with going forward in the career, I felt like I needed to have my people close to me, but they weren't being employed properly. You know, they weren't part of the major, they weren't part of the agency. It's like there had to be a champion inside, which was a white male, that they were able to have conversations with, or that kind of thing. And that was just the terrain, it seemed. And that was just—
And why do you think that is?
Accepted.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is?
champion? Why was that champion the only person that was able to open the door for you?
Because someone that believes, like the champion is someone that believes on the inside, that's going to be able to convince the funding and the this and the that, right?
Yeah, I get that, but I'm saying why does that champion have to be the only individual that can open that door for you? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I don't think it's the only I feel like we were talking about, is it important to you that there are Black people in part of these things?
Yes.
Absolutely. Because you don't really want to move forward unless you know that there are people that understand, or that, you know, you drop a reference as points of reference. There are rooms that you need to enter. There are conversations that you need to enter. And to truly champion someone, you have to also be standing where they're standing. There are subtleties. There are
and willing to fall when they fall.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? I think that's the thing. Some of those people who are opening the doors were willing to fall and had capacity and resource where that fall wouldn't be as far of a fall for them, right? Coming back to why this funding and all these things are necessary.
The risky, it's not as risky.
Taking those risks.
Of course. We're talking inside the building, Quest. I know you're over at the building right now at Warner.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that? Where do you think this importance is of having that champion, as we said, but having somebody that understands and looks and can really get the message?
I feel like that vantage point is more vital now than ever, because it's like Zachy was saying, getting into a situation with somebody who may not reflect the ideals or the experiences you've had is hard. I mean, even speaking from my personal experience, like when I signed my first publishing deal, like in that building, there weren't a lot of people that looked like me. Even the people that approached me didn't look anything like me. I was just lucky that the person who approached me understood what my music was. They had lived their life through that music, so they knew what it was. They knew how to work with it, how to make it something viable. But I feel like a lot of times, not everyone is so lucky. So it's like being that window, being that reflection for the artist or the producer or the songwriter that's coming up that wants to entertain these conversations or wants to look at these options is a big thing. And for me, that was reason why I stepped into the role, because I felt like I wanted to be that representation. I wanted to be that person that when people look at the label system, like, okay, cool, well, this guy looks like me, so I can have this conversation. He'll understand what I'm trying to do. He'll get it. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's hard. Like I was talking to a friend of mine who had who did a video recently, and she was like complaining about something in her video, and it was like something aesthetic. She was talking about something with her hair, like the way her braids were or whatever. And she was talking to me, and I was like, yeah, I feel that. And she's like, but nobody else got it, because nobody on the team could understand. But she's like, you get it, because it's like, you're a Black man, you have a Black wife, you understand these things, like you get this lifestyle. And I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? But everyone else was like, oh, it's fine. Like, that's not an issue, because they couldn't fully understand how she lives or why that was important to her. See what I'm saying? And it's like something as simple as something aesthetically, it's like, it's such a big deal. So if we're talking about something on a grander level, like if we're talking about the way you perceive your art, you want to have someone you can have that conversation with. You want to have someone that's like, yo, nah, I feel this. I get this. I understand why you want to do this. All right, cool. It is what it is. You don't want to have a bunch of people that are just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome, because of whatever reason it may be. If it's a thing where they're looking at, oh, you got a lot of plays or whatever other metric they're using to value your art, as opposed to, no, this is actually just good music. So let's help this and build this and be something. So I feel like that representation across the board is more important now than ever, whether it's in the label system, whether it's in publishing, whether it's in radio, whether it's in booking, wherever it is. Like, seeing ourselves is such an important thing. Like, to Densil's point, like him saying how he saw that man on the stage was a reflection of him. It's like, I want all of us to be that reflection for the kids coming up, for like my daughter, when she looks, oh, this is what daddy does. This is what mommy does. Oh, they're entrepreneurs. They're able to build these businesses and they can do X, Y, Z. You mean, oh, this person did what I want to do. Cool, so I can do that. And I want to always have that story to continue, so those conversations will continue to grow, and it'll never end in a place of, man, I wish I could. It's more like, okay, so how do I do mine? How do I do this? How do I do this like so-and-so? And I want that energy to continue to grow and move forth, because that's how this conversation will continue to be pushed forward, and it'll be more of a solution-based conversation than a problem-based conversation.
Of course. I mean, and that's what we're here for. We're definitely here to look at the solutions and what we can do. Kerwin, when it comes to, you know, what you've done as being a leader and a pioneer of the soca music, bringing that internationally, and when you have to speak to, you know, some of the media outlets, some of the individuals that are supposed to be the ones that are going to champion or be the bar between, you know, putting it out there on a mass level or not really being able to see it at all, how important is it for you to be able to reach out to a media outlet and see someone that looks like you, that understands the culture that you're trying to represent?
That's a good question. I don't know, I think sometimes we're not seen, period. I mean, we give so much to the world culturally, the energy, the vibe. I mean, soca is the only, we know a genre, but the only form of music that actually creates celebration, like happy vibes in the form of carnivals and the parties. You know, it's a whole different, it's a whole next level for me of, like when it comes to comparing it to other things. And I don't know if it's a language barrier or they just don't understand us sometimes, you know, and I like, you know, when can we speak to the right sources to actually get on the platform that the rest of the world of music is on? You know, we have hip hop there, we have Latin beats there, we have Afro beats, all these other genres up there, dancehall and everything, and we just struggling to get that little shine that we need. We might get once every 5 years, if we're lucky, you know. And I wanna touch on something as well that is off of your question.
Please.
It's just observation for me living out here. And I keep asking myself, why do a lot of Canadian talent, Black Canadian talent, need to go elsewhere in the world to bust and come back stars and heroes? Why?
Oh, we're going to talk about that. Trust me.
From music to sports to entertainment, Hollywood. Why do they always need to go somewhere else? Why doesn't Canada embrace that talent? You know?
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
like, come on. It's like you have all these gold mines here that you could say, this is a proud product of Canada. We did not, but somebody else created it. And now we just want to take praise and glory for it.
1,000. Click and I were actually talking about this. We were talking about the global level of, you know, of music and what we're trying to export to the world. Click, I really want to ask you if you can touch a little bit on what you were looking at on how it is perceived from a U.S. standpoint and how it's even perceived versus a Canadian standpoint.
I don't think so much the question is for me. I think the question is really for the artists in this room. Is,
of course, absolutely.
How do you feel doing music in this country? Do you actually believe that there is a cultural system that backs your music in this country? So, for example, in America, you have television, you have media, you have radio stations, and people that work in all these spaces that actually look and breathe and smell like us, along with other people, right? But there's already a foundation laid down. In this country, I think there's limitations. And because of that, do you feel that you actually have a chance to find the type of success that you inspired to achieve just basically living in Canada? That's the question. For any of you.
I asked. I want to ask another question on top of that, like for all the artists over here. Have you ever felt the need to change your sound to get popular? Find some type of niche to be a little bit more palatable to the masses, to elevate yourself? If the answer is yes, because it's yes for me, then I would say that I don't feel supported as a Black rock musician because they don't understand what I do and where I'm from. That's literally what it is. Like, it's all about, for my particular genre, it's all about how do we get you guys to sound like what's out now as an entry point so you can start doing your own thing as the experimental album. And that's just the way it works for me. I don't know if it's the same for other genres, but for me, people are looking for what they've heard before, the race to be second, before you try to do or bet on anything new, radical or Black over here. Just for me, speaking for myself.
Haviah, I would love to know, I mean, on your side, what you've done. And for those of you who are watching right now, Haviah is a recipient of this year's Polaris Prize, which is a high and honored achievement for artists of any genre in Canada. So again, congratulations to you on that. How do you feel when we look at globally? What do you think is more important or impactful for you? Is it becoming, like we said, with Polaris Prize, or is it seeing yourself on an international or on a global level? What will be more impactful for you?
What would be more between, like, if I had international success versus having won the Polaris?
Exactly. Just like even like a smaller level of maybe you've sold, a 500 person capacity in the U.S. in terms of a venue versus the top in terms of an award with Polaris Prize.
Well, yeah, I feel like the Polaris Prize is a really good accolade for recognition in this country. But having won that into September of 2019, we have already been, and COVID has changed things, but we were leveraging that exposure for U.S. opportunities. So like things like that increased my rate when it came to performances, allowed me to do my first U.S. tour, allowed me to get on Sway to do the 5 Fingers of Death. I wouldn't have had that opportunity if not for the accolade that they could look up and be like, oh, this is something, like, let's bring this person in. So I would definitely say that the Polaris is, and there are other accolades as well. I'm sure for some people it's other things, but that's like a stepping stone towards the bigger picture, which is a mass audience that is appreciating your work, the work you have in your heart that you want to put out. I think for me, that's the optimal goal. And given the infrastructure here in this country, even the makeup of how many people in this country are Black, I think it's under 3%. There's the access point, the amount of people, that access point of having the mass listenership is already stifled based on all of these things. So I would definitely say international successes, and I've kind of seen it as kind of that next step or something I'm looking forward to, and something like the Polaris is, hopefully something towards kind of enlarging your audience, if you will. Like for me, the goal is to have as many listeners as possible without having to conform the actual music I'd like to put out. And I'm glad that my music was recognized through the Polaris as music that I would want. Like, I'm grateful that this is the first thing people have heard from me, that like all those other projects that I did when I was younger that, have a lot of imperfections. I'm a perfectionist. That was not like the first thing that people heard. I feel like it's a good introduction for me. But, before COVID and post-COVID, the goal is definitely to look into like the international touring opportunities and to kind of knock on those doors that have a wider audience behind them. And Canada just doesn't necessarily have all of those things in place. I mean, there's a lot of people that I look up to. Jully Black is a huge example where it's like, you're an amazing artist, but those major opportunities from the stateside, it's like those things don't necessarily flood towards the Canadian legends that we've looked up to as artists. So I think I've also learned through seeing amazing artists that I see not necessarily getting the success I think that they should have, that like that's one of the things that holds a lot of Canadian artists back. And you know, having a management team that also understands that and wants to push for those same things, and understands my music and wants to help create those opportunities without conforming that sound. Like Denz, you asked, like, do people want to conform their sound? And I've gone through that for sure. You know, I went to school in London, Ontario for 2 years, surrounded by white people. I picked up the guitar at that time frame. I started doing indie music at that time frame because it was like, well, I can do all these things and I can sing and I can rap at the same time. And in fact, they won't come to my shows unless I, you know, so there's, you know, your environment makes you want to adopt all these different things. But I'm really grateful for the opportunity to, you know, put out an album where I already kind of figured out what I want to say and how I want to say it. So I feel like it's a good place to know that what the music I want it to sound like. But now it's like, who am I going to open these doors to and how am I going to get there? And yeah, just to go back to what you were saying, Jermaine, like the US market, I feel just from conversations, from talking to legends, from being on panels, it's just like a trajectory, particularly for hip hop as well.
Of course.
In this
country. You know, we had a discussion about, you know, you starting off in, you know, in production and having a great relationship in the US.
Yeah.
Why is it though that we are Black artists in Canada definitely feel like the only way to be successful is by going abroad?
So I will first say this. I don't think the only way to be successful is going abroad. I feel like the first question to ask is, what's your perception of success? You know what I mean? Because, like, for prime example, I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of years ago. I hadn't talked to him for about a year or two, and we reconnected, and we were just talking, and I was like, yo, what are you up to? He's like, I quit my job. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, I'm engineering full time. And I was like, oh, that's dope. It's amazing. And he was like, oh, well, it's not that great. I'm just making the same money I was making when I was working my job. And I was like, what? Did you not hear what you just said? You were making the same money you were making when you were working a full-time job, but you're doing something you love and you're waking up every day and doing that. And he was like, damn, I never thought about that. Because most people's perception of success is like, I'm Kanye, I'm Jay-Z, I'm Beyonce. So it's like the first question to ask is, what is your perception of success? What does success mean to you? Because for me, if I could wake up and I can do what I love and I pay all my bills and my family is good, I'm successful. Everything beyond that point is a plus. That's how I look at it. So that's the first question I would ask, one. And then two, going to the US or working in the US or having success in the US is a big thing for a lot of people because of, like I said, you're looking at artists like the Kanyes, the Jay-Z's, the Beyoncés, the Adeles, like all these people are huge artists in this massive market. So when you're looking at the population of people that you have access to, it's like, why wouldn't you want to go there? Why wouldn't you want to be with these labels that have huge budgets, that have great resources or whatnot? So like I said, it really comes down to what you think is more important, but you can find success on either side of the board. It just depends on what you want. But a lot of times, and like for me, as using myself as an example, a lot of times we'll go to the US because the opportunities present themselves there faster than they do here. Like,
and that's what I wanted to, just quickly, that's the part that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
It happens faster.
It happens
of course
faster.
It'll happen on both sides. And I don't think any of us, and I don't think what the question I was posing was that you cannot have an enjoyment or a personal pride on what you've done. Absolutely. But why is it that it takes so long here? And guess what? If I'm an artist, if I'm trying to come up with some sort of amount to support myself, like you said, feed my family and do what, and it's taking so long here, what we're trying to figure out is why.
Because
why is it that there are some artists in the same industry?
We all want to talk.
Solutions, people.
I'm saying, like, this is what we're trying to get to here. You know, we all know that success will happen if you work hard and if you pay your dues. Of course, absolutely. But we want to figure out, and we want to go for the next generation of figuring out, why is it taking so long here? Why does it take long for a guy like Drake to have to go away to the States and figure his things out internationally? Why did we not foster it here? Why did we not foster it for most of our producers who are needing to go and do things internationally? But they're all talented and they're all staying here.
Ian, and I'd like to refocus the conversation on systemics, things that are taking place at a high level that are causing barriers to you guys in all of these areas that you're speaking about, so that we can get onto the idea of solutions at these high levels of conversation.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is what Click was saying earlier about cultural system. Is there a need for a cultural system? Because that answer, the answer to that question, like why is it that you want to leave, and why is it faster, why is it slow? There are many reasons, but on a system level, there is no, like we have Heritage Canada, we have all these like cultural things, like what's Canada, whatever. And like there needs to be a cultural system for black artistry, and there isn't, which doesn't make any sense because of how like the amount
popular
of
the genre is, how popular
absolutely
Black
and
artists
the
are.
money and the I mean I was listening to just the other day the podcast the This Is Not a Drake podcast talking about like either it's anyone know about that? This Is Not a Drake podcast with Ty and thing. It was on CBC anyway, saying either it's bad business, like it's like, you know, because if you look at the numbers, either that or they don't want you, or they don't want to support you. It's suspicious because, you know, all of the signs are pointing, and there's a sense of uncomfortable with, you know, venue operators, from the venue operators to the you know, whatever it is, but there isn't this cultural system that, and if there's a cultural system, it has to be dynamic, and it has to be large enough. Like when you're talking about like, should there be more Black people at the majors, in these organizations? Not a one Black person here, so you can go speak to your counselor. Like it needs to be teams that understand. And there's enough Black people that know what the fuck they're doing within the industry to have like teams of Black, like, you know what I mean? And not like 80% white male and the rest checking the boxes so that the Black people feel comfortable, you know, or the white people feel comfortable too, and that kind of thing. So the system in itself, I feel, on that answer and a bunch of other answers is that how do we build a cultural system?
Well, I mean, what's interesting too is, I mean, what happened to UMAC? You know, we barely could hold on to the word caravana. You know, you know, we obviously systemically, we need people in place. Yes. Do we need to have 1-2 industry partner? Are we throwing partner to raise money? Like, what are we doing? Where's the money?
So let's talk about representation. How many Black people does it take in an organization, Kerwin, Jully, etc., to change the culture in these organizations, like the record labels? How many A&Rs does it take? How many people at the executive level? If we are the ones bringing the music to the table, but not making decisions on who should be paid, on who should be selected.
Can I just say something as far as like cultural and that kind of system? We need to wheel it back a little bit, because the history behind Caribana, the history behind Soca music, and it's a powerful music. That needs to be built into like the Canadian identity and history, and so that the importance of it needs to be seen. And then from there, you figure out how many A&R you actually need, how many, that kind of thing. But you need to wheel back and look at like the foundations of what makes up Canadian culture.
Let's take a moment to look at the CRTC and the definition of the music in urban and world music, as Kerwin pointed out. Kerwin, what to you would assist in bringing Soca music to the masses in terms of the way that it's represented in the Canadian radio system? And this question goes to Dens and Jully, who have been boxed in as well, in terms of their music being called urban and it being locked into a box.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, sometimes we might have to water it down to be accepted. I still yet to hear Soca on a mainstream station. And I'm talking about the way how Caribbean stations play international music. I still waiting to hear our Caribbean music played on international radio. Don't give me no who let the dogs out and them things. We're not talking about that. We don't want that. and no hot, hot, hot. Don't give me no arrow. You understand? We have evolved. Soca has evolved. We are now part of world music, a solid part of it too. We play an integral part in what makes the world of music music. We have put our feet in the ground, and we need to be accepted and appreciated for the efforts.
Someone pointed out
water things down all the time. Why we have to change? Why do I have to not talk Trini and be like, okay, guys, so I want you to take a wine on me.
Well, because you're not speaking to your people, right? So at the end of the day, where you realize that Canada's very reactive, it's not a proactive country. They react, still reacting. Not even like it'd be one thing if Canada took a chance to listen and respond intelligently. Canada reacts. Big difference between reacting and responding, right? And so, yeah, you're straightening out this and ironing out that. I can be fully upfront and say I just didn't. But at the end of the day, I like that LordQuest was speaking about how you define success. I want to just kind of jump on that for a hot second, and intention, right? And what we think we deserve. And I have to lean back on the oldies that say, well, if you're ready, then it would be ready. When you're ready, you're ready. And I think a lot of us think we're more ready than we are. I had to check myself and say, really, and the 300 million people in America, which is great. I want to definitely meet all of them and have them sing my songs. At the end of the day, what's my legacy going to be? How am I cementing my legacy? And when my great number is called, is it going to be that I think it's Jay-Z that said it, we spend the least amount of time at number one. It's like this prime time versus mean time. We're all looking at the prime time. What's going on in the prime time? But we live most of our lives in the meantime. And this is where we need to be funded. Yes. We all need to pay. We pay mortgages and rent. I look at it the same way. We need to drive a car. We need transportation. We need essentials. Music is essential. It's healing. It's essential. And it needs the funding. Go ahead. Ian.
And you're definitely correct in as much as we need to be ready. But the question is, when we are ready, are there systemic barriers? Like in terms of like back to the radio thing, like if the demographics were collected differently, if the books were created differently, how would that affect the ability for Jully Black's music to play on, like taking an artist and putting them into pop when they make a record that hits, as opposed to, Beyonce makes R&B music. Denz makes, click.
I think what you're saying is perfect.
I was pop and R&B on iTunes.
Well, here's a question: is like PRTC was created to basically give white artists supposedly in this country an opportunity to be heard on radio. And so I believe it started off at, I think it was 25%. It wasn't 30 right off the gate. And now I think it's like 35 or 40, I think it is. But the idea is that it still only serves a certain elite at radio. And there's been reform that's happened over the years in these spaces. So the question is like, does there need to be a reform in different boards and spaces like CRTC that would give more Black voices and opportunities like Kerwin and Densil and the rest of you an opportunity to actually have to be played in these spaces? Or would it be a problem and maybe just play more Drake?
Let's see.
It's birthright. We're dealing with birthright.
Well, yes.
I've lived through that era. Drake's birthright, the Weeknd's birthright, Alyssa Cara birthright. They just want to know where you're born, and that covers the Canton Con or whatever you want to call it these days.
So someone had a great comment in the.
It's like, I think rest is necessary.
Sorry, Julie, you were chipping. Sorry, you were chipping, so I thought you were finished. Someone made a great comment in the comment section. They said that the default of Canadian music is white music, and so there is no place for certain things. It may not intentionally have been created to be racist, but it has not been updated to include you guys. And this is a systemic problem that we need to come
systemic racism.
Yeah, there's
so few of us. There's so few of us.
Yeah, and
it's
also
demographic, it's all that. There's so few of us. People are serving. They're serving their own.
So, but we are
We're serving the
3.9, we're 3.9% of the population, or 8.8 in Toronto, but we are not, but the population of people that listen to urban music, which is Black music, forget urban music, is not 3.9. And consequently, the systems that were created, right, the way in which certain things were created to determine, okay, 3.9% of the population is listening to Black music, and consequently funding for this will be commiserate with the 3.9, et cetera, et cetera. These are the systemic problems that we need to overcome. And so I want you guys to look at the things at the higher level as opposed to where we're kind of stuck at the moment in terms of victim blaming ourselves for not assimilating properly into a system which was not created to include us.
Bingo.
When you're talking about reform, I think that if there, am I on?
Yeah, it's you. It's you.
If there was, I mean, reform, yes, but like when we're looking at a cultural system, like the possibility of like, you know, changing things, I think to look at the like how dynamic, you know, to change the dynamic as well, like, because the genres, I think the urban genre can be harmful, like that idea, like because it narrows the kind of like there's only so many Black people that can be, you know, and then what's popular is Drake, and so of course Drake is going to be played on the radio and stuff like that, and but also if there is going to be Black voices, to have all the Black voices, right? Does that make sense? Like if there is going to be anything like that, that it's done differently, that it's seen differently.
Sorry.
Of course.
Jermaine.
Of course. Yeah, no, I love the point that you just made, Zachy. And Densil, maybe you could touch a little bit from your side and from your genre, because of course, a lot of the time when we look at Black music, especially when we think of the term urban, I mean, we talked about how even just from DSP level that they didn't really know where to place you and to place the music that you were making. You just muted yourself.
Unmute yourself.
My bad. Yeah. It's interesting, right? Radio. If the topic is radio, and you were going to listen to rock radio, let's just say locally, most of the people in rock music are white males right now. If we're trying to be solutions based and try to find representation in these different spaces for different types of artists, you know what I'm saying? I think systemic solutions need to be provided for systemic issues. I believe the CRTC would be a perfect union to instill or influence radio across Canada in providing more fair representation for different types of artists, right? If 35% of the people of radio programming has to be Canadian content, Black people are getting lost within those cracks. Black rock artists are getting lost within those cracks, right? You can find a Canadian artist, but you're gonna find one that the business of radio is trying to get people to listen for a long period of time. Their business model is based off of ad buys and support from major record labels. So if they don't think that people are going to stay paying attention to you, then they're not going to be able to make money off you. Then they're not going to play you. That's a systemic problem, right? With further stronger influence or even personal accountability across the line, if all these organizations were required to have some type of public accountability statement in which it states exactly what they are going to do and how that is going to be monitored from here on out, I think it would be very beneficial for an artist like myself, who would obviously just fall through the cracks when it comes to radio. Like the only way an artist like me in my genre gets played is if you sound like them. I don't want to sound like them. I don't want to sing like them. I don't want to do anything like them. So it makes me choose another road, right? To that, maybe you hear me, maybe you don't. I build my community on myself. But that being said, I do believe it could be very, very helpful for representation going forward for other Black people, other people of color listening to see and hear different types of artists, different types of voices, you know? Hopefully that answered the question.
I think Kerwin.
You're muted. There you go.
My mind was somewhere else. What was the question again, boss? No, Watchman, my mind was on something else because I was just asking questions or listening to everybody talk, and I was like, does stardom and success come with a color in this music business out here? You know, that's what I'm asking myself is like, okay, Haviah, Zaki, Densil, do they not make the cut because of their color, even if they have more talent than a lot of the people that put up on the pedestal out here?
I mean,
You know?
I would respond to that. I would say, like, I've spoken specifically to people in this country that open those doors, whether it's the Junos or the Polaris, that say, you know, in this country, it's been 25 years of white guys playing guitars, but we're looking to make a change. And then you don't see the change post-conversation, right? So I would definitely say, like, the walls you got to break down, it definitely does appear that color is a huge hindrance with regard to success and stardom with your music creation.
I would say so as well. I think that if we were to talk about, and Jully's back, if we were to talk about the financial and grant systems, for instance, you know, we were, you know, an associate of mine and I were going through some numbers the other day, and there are huge discrepancies in the amount of the average amount granted to R&B, soul, and hip hop artists versus rock, pop, alternative, and folk music artists. The number of the percentage of success in those categories is on average 17% higher than it is in our categorically Black categories. Some of these grant organizations, for instance, where Kerwin is involved, don't even have a category where he would fit in. And so these are issues that, you know, like Haviah, you turned up a couple of times. There were a lot of pictures of people of color on the report, but you turned up 3 times in those people of color. And so the question that we have to ask is, are these organizations saying these things and really not doing them, and how are we going to take them to account? And this is where it is that we want to get, and I don't want to feed you guys answers, but I'm like, what is it that you want to see specifically in granting, in gaps in the capital funding processes, in radio, in telecommunications, and these kind of things? You know, what is it that you guys want to see in terms of change and representation and bias? You know, what are your suggestions on how to improve access to capital, et cetera, et cetera? You know, we're getting down to the 7:30 mark. Jully, do you have to go?
Julie had to. I know Julie has a hard stop at 7:30, but I did want to.
I'm okay for another 15 minutes, 15, 20.
Oh, perfect. That's great.
Tremaine, you want to take back over?
I'll always let you drive in. Ian has a great way of really bringing everything together, because of course it is about what we can do, the solutions that we can find. You know, that's the reason why we're all here. But seeing as how we were just talking to Julie, maybe you'd like to take that point that Ian was going with, as far as the solutions, some of the things that we can see in some of these places, what we would like to see, mainly right now, seeing as how this is what we've been talking about, but for radio and media, what would we like to see in terms of changes that would make things a lot easier and those barriers non-existent?
Well, as a people, we're very creative. I think that a lot of the creative spaces, we have remix that have various types of people. We had Fresh Arts back in the day. I think that, you know, once we are able to be funded creatively, when those juices are flowing and we have those outlets, I think that there's education that can be had as well within those spaces. So rather than just like, okay, here's your money to make your record, marketing, all this factor star maker, and you kind of are given a chunk to do this kind of one thing. It's the music business. It's the entertainment business. And I think the business side is what's been lacking so much for so many of us, and we've become dependent on those, especially those that don't look like us. Like I went through a serious issue with taxes back in the day, and it had to do with funding and what taxes weren't scraped off, and just trusting a team, etc. Right? That didn't necessarily have my best interest at heart. It was like, hey, sing, nigga, sing. Jully can make a person cry and laugh on one note. But what about my books? What about, like, I learned some things a tough way, right? But now, being in this space, as long as I have life, I have time. Like, systemically, I think more of us need to be comfortable going back to growing up, being executives. Someone asked me, I think it was you, Ian, would you be a manager? And I said, no, I'm not interested in being a manager to manage an artist. I'd rather be an executive that actually, like, I know what's popping. I'm not just here to make you a star. This is where could I be? Where could my wisdom, my knowledge and understanding, and where could I learn more to better suit the industry, the system as a whole? Will you, Mr. or Mrs., whatever company, look at Jully as an executive now? Or am I still rallying?
So how do we get you to executive, and how do we get you to label owner, 50-50 co-deal with a major, etc., based on the experiences and the successes that you've had in Canada?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of getting me to there. I think that I have to really kind of plant a new seed, as I have been, in, like, just figuring out and knowing who I am as a person, and not only being identified as an artist. And going for those things, going for the funding, going for those positions that I feel and recognize that I may not be qualified for yet, but I'm called for. And I know innately that I'm called for. And so, there's a lot of inner work that has to be done. And there's also a lot of people that are still in the same damn seats since I was 17.
There's some.
There it is.
Same people.
There it is.
Running the business. Same people. It's not them, it's their kids. If it's not them, it's their wife, it's their neighbor. Same people since I was 16 years old. I'm 42 years old.
So there
Same
it
people.
Is. Go, Jermaine. Sorry.
There it is. That is actually what we wanted to get down.
That's what we were trying to get to. So, if the people who are in the positions of power are the same people who were there when you were 17, not to mention their lack of understanding of the new world, like, what is it that their unconscious and conscious biases are that will stop an artist like Kerwin coming in? They're like, what is soca music? Or that will look at an artist like Densil and say, well, he doesn't fit I don't know exactly where to put him, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
because it's still the slave trade. I don't know where to put him. I don't know where to put her. How much you have on this auction block? How much for this slave? How much a pound? It's the same thing that's happening.
So that is it.
Yeah, the lack of understanding also. Like, I don't know where to put you. It's like, why don't you know how to put me? Because
why do you have a job?
The lack of understanding. You're not hanging. I was wanting to say, like, you're not hanging out. You're not listening to the music. It's not familiar to you. We know rock. We know all the rock songs. We know all the we know music that we don't necessarily want to know. Like, but there's a disconnect.
Can I say this one thing? I would say that I'll compare this to, like, stateside and other parts of the world. And I really hope that those executives who are still in those positions are watching and listening to trust your kids, grandkids, neighbors, trust the next generation. Stateside, sometimes you're being brethren with that person's kid. It's the kid saying, hey, dad, hey, mom. You know what I mean? Not saying to sell yourself out. You get what I'm trying to say? Like,
no, of course.
It's okay.
But
pass the baton.
But also the question of that should be why? Why should I only have to hope that the executive has a child that's listening to the music that we're making? Why is that opportunity not available to someone who just already knows it? That's already part of it. If you have to learn something from somebody that is the child, I mean, that doesn't really give me a lot of faith as a manager in working with, my artists, that I'm hoping that their child listens to it. I want somebody that's going to be involved, that actually knows what my artist is going to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your message?
In Canada, in Canada, no one gets fired. Everyone just gets moved around like chess. Like, you just slide around. You know what I mean? It's like Canada, the Canadian industry been on Serb before Serb been around. It's been to Serb. Okay. But what I can appreciate
if they didn't get fired, they weren't given an opportunity to move up though. There's plenty of Black professionals who have been in this business that just haven't gotten the leadership and the actual opportunity to rise to the occasion either.
And you hold on though, you might get the rise up, but you don't get the pay up.
Or the power.
Okay.
But yeah,
there's
you
enough people.
Sorry,
you get the title, you get the business card, you might even get the vacation days. But
Sorry,
go peer for peer, you're not getting the same pay. General manager over here, general manager over there, you're not getting the same pay.
Sorry,
Call it judge. Right?
Kerwin, you wanted to...
I listening to Jully speak, right? You say from 17 years, I know you're 42. So how come we don't have a Black run funded organization out here in Canada? Created for us, by us. Why we don't have that?
Well, I mean, this isn't the panel for that conversation, the For Us By Us. The For Us By Us is not this panel. This panel is to tell the white people what they're not doing. The For Us By Us is another panel. And I'm going to be totally transparent and honest. It's a different conversation, the For Us By Us. I think Radio Star Maker was started for them, by them, and we've been beneficiaries. So the For Us By Us is another panel.
1,000%.
Definitely.
1,000%.
Definitely.
Haviah, wanted to hear from you. Lots happening right now.
Yeah, what exactly do you want to hear me speak on? Because I feel like that was summed up real good.
Would love to hear your thoughts on just the idea of what solutions, now that before we get out of the idea of media and whatnot, but what solutions do you see that could help us really bring down those barriers and allow it so that we're not hoping that, you know, someone's child is not listening to our music, but that we actually have people that are involved and that are in these positions to be able to make the opportunities for us.
Yeah, I think that there's like individual efforts that we can make within our own craft, like what is specific to us. So for me, I have a team, I have a female manager, and I have Black people on my team. And I've brought Black people on my team. I also work only with people that are not Black, that understand my Blackness, or if they don't understand that, they understand that that's important to me and that's what the music is going to speak to, which makes it easier to bring more people on the team that look like me, that are able to do the job. And so like,
thank you, qualified.
Yeah, qualification is absolutely. Qualification is as important. And the last thing I would want is to have Black people on my team who are not representative of the standard that I hold for myself. So those two things I think are incredibly important. So as an individual, I try to marry within my team, making sure there's Black representation, but also making sure the standard and the work that we're doing is of utmost importance. And so when I'm traveling, my tour manager, I brought him in, he's my sister's husband. Now he's my tour manager. And when we travel, there's a different type of treatment. Sometimes it's like they don't realize that's the person they spoke to on the phone. And also when I travel with my manager, who's a woman, it's like, sometimes it's like, let me talk to the tour manager because he's a man and I'm assuming that's your manager. So it's kind of changing the representation. I feel like I try to do that within my music, but also within the representation on my team. So that's like an individual way to navigate it. I also think in this time, and you know, we see a sense of community in ways I haven't through like digital and social media in COVID. And I'm seeing, you know, more of a sense of community. And it's made me recognize that even just outside of the music industry, one thing that a lot of my people, our people, lack having statements in is entrepreneurship, right? And actual ownership, and not just particularly music, but in different facets, and realizing that your reliance level on certain things is not on your own people. And so I've been actively trying to, outside of even music, support Black businesses, put my money, even if the cost for a product is $5 or $10 more, recognizing what those setbacks are for us, let's say in terms of distribution and all of these sort of things. It's the same thing that filters down to the grants that we maybe aren't qualified for, or the opportunities because the festival will only put one Black artist on the platform, right? And I also recognize that I am a very tokenized artist. I feel I've always been a tokenized person. I've always kind of, if I got an opportunity, I was like the one person to represent people that look like me in those spaces. And so I think it's important when I get those opportunities to take them and then be very vocal with them. So if I'm performing on Canada, I'm going to talk about the 13th Amendment. I'm not just going to be like Happy Canada Day and you know what I mean? So I think it's very important to do it on an individual basis as well as trying to work within the community, and then seeing efforts of other Black individuals and also trying to support that. I think that's as important as doing the same within your own infrastructure. So that's kind of what I've been doing. Or trying to do.
Amazing. So I want to shift. Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it.
Sorry, I wanted
I was
to
going to
shift.
ask.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Shift away, Ian.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Quest if he had anything he wanted to add to that. Because I saw him at first, he had something. I just wanted to hear it.
No, honestly, I think I know a lot of energy has been put on funding, but I feel like money without education is useless. And I feel like a lot of that is where a lot of the energy needs to be. One big solution is education, is understanding how processes work. Because in order to change something, you got to know how it works, how it's built. You know what I mean? In order to drive a car, you got to know how to start it. So it's like, in order for us to really affect change or really implement these ideas, we got to know what the system is. So how is the grant writing system put together? Why is funding this way? Or what are the structural processes for this? Okay, cool. Now I get it. So this is how I got to move now in order to make that shake for me. And it's like, even going back to like Haviah's point, even just the outlook of her organization and just structurally having women being a core foundation of her process is like, it's the same thing. She knows that, okay, naturally it's the man is the manager, or the man is this and that. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to change the way that looks. I'm going to have women in the forefront of my business now because I want this to be the new norm. I want people to understand this is the new process. It can look like this. But so she had to understand. Go ahead.
So in that process that you're talking about within the system and putting money where it needs to be put, where would you, like if I put a big bag in your pocket right now, Quest, and you had the opportunity to change the landscape of where we work in, where would you put that?
I feel like I would put that money into the next generation, the people that are coming up, because the people that are there now.
Where in the system, not just the next generation. Like we're talking radio, we're talking media, we're talking label,
technology,
lawyers, we're talking technology, we're talking publishing. These are all different areas. So Jully, obviously you're saying technology. Quest,
part of it.
Sorry, what was the last part?
Business.
It's a Quest. Where would you put it based on that?
So technology definitely is definitely something integral because we're always growing and changing. But into the label system, into making better opportunities for artists, because I feel like a lot of the opportunities afforded right now aren't necessarily or haven't been in the past most favorable to artist development. So a big thing would be like investing in like more spaces like a remix project to develop artists, to develop people business minded, because like I said, driving and moving forward, it's the people that have the understanding, that have the ideas, and giving them the tools or the ammunition they need to kind of build those notions and really put them in place. So a lot of it would be, like I said, into programs like a remix project, into things like the label system, and helping to better diversify the people that are in those spaces, and giving them the education to understand that there's difference and there's unique situations outside of what you naturally know, and you have to be able to understand that and recognize that. Right?
Julie,
can I say something? I want to say something.
Yeah, Julie, you said technology. What else were you going to say?
Oh yeah, so it's interesting because LordQuest, you mentioned something earlier too about other businesses. I'm paraphrasing, but so for me, I recognize that what I didn't know in the music business that I know now, I implement into my fitness business. And so I often used to say, even Click, when we were at Universal, I'd say to Megan, my marketing person, if you can market a Pepsi can, you should be able to market Jully Black. And so similarly, I realized some of the voids that were missing in accounting and bookkeeping, in project management and process and order, business, financial literacy, exactly, emotional agility, emotional intelligence, how to not take things so personally, certain things, mental health, that play a big part in the success of the business as a whole. Recognizing that for me, with my fitness side of my business, recognizing that all 5 people at the top tier are 5 Black women, all the way Black. And we start off with, now it's COVID, but it's in-person Zoom. There's no we have to catch a vibes. I need to look you in the eyes right away. And you know what I mean? And really discern and say, you know what I mean? Like certain things that we haven't been leaning on from our ancestors. That's like, yo, if it don't feel right, it ain't right. The power of no. I call the IP address, the I'll pass. You'd be surprised about the I'll pass.
Right.
The I'll pass is big, right? And so, but recognizing that as a business, let me just finish this piece, where we could get funding for our business. Sometimes we're just focusing on funding as for the artistry. But we get funding for our team, and I know, say, my brethren, Rosie, who is legal and is qualified, and I could get a 1-2 funding for her to be in-house for X amount of hours per week and to create more capacity, meaning time for me to do other things, right? We can't make time, we can only create capacity. You have to do less of one thing to do more of something else. Right. And so many artists, we're trying to do so much on our own. That's where funding comes into play. And we can hire out, just like Haviah, you're saying about hiring out your peeps, same type of vibes. I laugh.
So do you feel as funding for Black companies, like having your own empire and running your own empire, do you feel like there's actual limitations for you receiving that type of funding in this country?
100%, 100%. I'm even running into it with Black people in fitness. Like I've seen it's the parallel. It is the parallel. If you just look at different systems, it's not new. It's not new. Most of the time we're the minority, but recognizing, oh snap. Okay, so we can go in there, learn, to your point, LordQuest, and dominate and have dominion. But do we have patience to learn? Do we have patience to actually take the time to be educated and be locked in, and have that locked and loaded, right? Business, ownership.
So then,
because then, hold on, charity. Yo, you want to come and talk about Black this and that? Well, hey, what type of organization can we become a nonprofit? Are we nonprofit, for profit? Are we charity? There's opportunities out there that aren't necessarily to make the rocket record. Like I had to really think, okay, Jully, my mom used to say, playful to catch wise. Okay, playful to catch wise. Okay, so, all right, you're not trying to play the Jully Black record because you want 7 Day Fool and you want that only? Okay, we're going to pivot a little bit. We're going to pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot. And I'm the same Jully. Oh, so now it's Black Lives Matter and you want Running, the song I wrote in 2009. 2009.
Right.
What quality music are you writing? Is it real? To your point, Haviah, are you writing and singing your truth? Because that thing doesn't go out of style. That carousel will come around. Trust me. And to your point, LordQuest, what is success? That's success. Well, if I could see CBC call me, hey, could we glue this George Floyd, could we do a video to your song from Running? I said, I'm like, Running? Sure. Guess what? I took $2,500, not $50,000, to own my master's in 2002. In 2002. At 23 years old or whatever, however, I said, I'll own my master's, drive the ring bang Dodge Caravan and own masters and buy 3 properties. And fast forward, now they have to come to me for clearance. How do you define your own success? How do you define your success? The application of knowledge is success. The application of knowledge is success, brethren. Right? And have some humility. Have some humility. That's big too. Humility. Be humble. It doesn't mean Kendrick just said be humble. Be humble from time, brethren.
That's right.
I would like to ask that same question I asked the Dens. If you had a bag, what would you do to change? Like what thing in this country right now would you change that would benefit your career and maybe even other Black artists in the rock space?
I think the greatest path to, I think what we're all talking about is like, what's the 25-year effect on what we're talking about right now? Like, and I think if all things are parallel in life, just to kind of echo what Jully was saying a little bit, is that like, you'll find a lot of the same obstacles depending on whatever genre, whatever workspace you're in. As a Black person, you're going to run into certain limitations. And now the problem is, or it's not, the solution is to have upward mobility. I think the quickest way for upward mobility for any Black business, and this is the music business we're talking about, is education and money. If we're looking at how these people are owning the industry, it's because they're educated and they're grandfathered in. for their relationships. So if we put money into resources to educate ourselves, and that means financially, that definitely means emotionally. It definitely means emotionally, and it also means on the relationships that are built within the industry, not being held out of those rooms.
So education is what you look at, and in what area of education, and how do you see that actually? Like, where would you start that? Go right to show me the route.
Show me the route. Well, there's so many different routes because this is definitely at a young level. Financial literacy is the most important thing that I think all of us business owners can have. But business management in general is something that I think would be beneficial to any type of growing business. So how do I balance my book? Accounting is very, very important. But I think education is really, really like wholesome because we're so far back that I don't know if you guys really understand how far back we are in this race over here. We aren't grandfathered into these conversations. We are held out of the rooms in which these conversations are had. So we aren't even built on these relationships that are allowing the business to thrive as is. So we need a partner to get into those conversations, right? So I do believe that if I was going to get the bag and get the money, I would dedicate those resources to a financial literacy program tailored to Black music business owners, so allows them to get through there. In that, I would invite the owners and real contributors as in the community, in the music industry, that can be influential into these people's success. What does that mean? I need somebody that can do something at Spotify. I need somebody that can do something at Apple. I need somebody that can do something in radio, somebody that can do something. I need somebody that can do something in grants, to be at the table, to witness what's happening and all these business owners learning. And now I need them to be handed off into those conversations and into those rooms in which they can work. And that's kind of how I would do it. Empower these individuals into their product, empowering these individuals, into developing the product, into running their product like a business, and into having those conversations in those rooms. 25-year effects on that would be crazy.
Thank you. So,
Exactly. What would you do?
We're going to go to questions soon, but I do want to ask the question to Haviah, Kerwin, and Zaki, and then we're going to go into the questions. And
I was just doing that. Zaki, what would you do with that bag? Same question.
Zaki, your mic. Turn your mic on.
I would put it into all sorts of things. Technology, mentorship. Mentorship. We're talking about education, but it's like there's also, I was saying earlier about the disconnect thing, is that like, how do we create the connection and from the generation coming up to the generation, and also to be able to, when we're talking about literacy, education, that kind of thing, I think mentorship programs like the Remix Project, expanding on the Remix Project so that they are properly injected into the systems where, you know, part of the mentorship is you know, shadowing, or like, you know, those kinds of programs, I think, to lessen that disconnect culturally and generationally.
Question, do you guys know of, is there enough Black owned community driven organizations that are helping artists and future professionals? And not to say that Remix is like, obviously I work at Remix. I love Remix. They give me a check and I go there and I mentor people, and that's what I love doing. But I do have to ask the question, like, where are we as Black people in building our own communities to mentor ourselves?
Well, it used to be Fresh Arts, and Fresh Arts, we grew up and we lost funding. Shout out to Fresh Arts. So many of us came from there. And I think that in Canada, it would be amazing for us to actually celebrate like the NAACP 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Why do we have to do these short-lived? When it's Black owned, it seems to be short-lived for some reason, right? For some reason, there's an expiration. the bag seems to go to the white savior syndrome, the white owners who save the at-risk children, the at-risk artists, the at-risk communities. But I think the riskiest thing is them giving us the baton. They're at risk. They're actually at risk to put the power in our hands.
I think
so,
one of the things I've learned with the passing of my mother-in-law is the fact that she had a white lawyer that was in her corner, but I never felt anything that I've seen that she try to pass a baton to let another white person in to run her empire. She had a vision for it, and she found somebody who actually helped make that vision to come to life for them, you know? And I think like, that's anything I could say to empower other people out there is like, we have great minds, we're great talented people. And, you know, it's about putting money and motivating and leading people to go to where they need to go. You know what I'm saying? Haviah, if you had a bag, where would you put it?
I feel like the most important thing about getting the bag is understanding the bag. Like, so I think it's important to understand like who to partner with so you can open doors and knock them down. But I also think that if you don't understand what that person is doing with the bag that you've brought in, then you have a big problem. And we see a lot of musicians have this issue where the money gets messed up on the back end. And it's very difficult to know what's happening. You can even know and still have things be messed up. But I think the best way to try to set yourself up for success is mentorship, but I think it's specific to how the money is broken up into like different streams of revenue. Like if you're just, first of all, a lot of musicians don't necessarily even know how to get their music on like certain distributors. They don't know how the money's broken up on the back end. They don't know what is the master side versus what is the publishing side. They don't know what mechanical royalties are, you know, versus like what sound exchange is. And I think it's, I do think it is, you're capable of, and it is something I'm doing where I'm partnering with people who understand, and I have this limited understanding, but still enough understanding to ask the right questions, request the contracts, be CC'd on these emails so that I understand where the money's coming from. So when, and even like having access to your own bank account, there's a lot of things that when you relinquish it and you don't have some insight over what's going on, it's really great. And the music industry is extremely complicated. Like I've studied some of this stuff and it's still very like, but like at the same time, I have a limited amount of understanding that has implored me to hire the right person for the gig. Like if I don't know how the money's broken up, like somebody can tell me or feed me a bunch of nonsense. And so like just trying to understand, like setting up my own sound exchange. Like for me, I put music out and received minimal money, but I've received money based on these, I guess, splits of a song before management kind of set this stuff up for me. So you start to understand, oh, the producer, like Quest, you could talk about it, but like the producer is going to take a certain percentage. What is that standard percentage? When you work with management, what is standard commission? When you work with a booking agent, am I supposed to sign a physical contract or is it a handshake deal? Understanding that these sort of standards, I think, is where I would invest the money. Whereas, I don't know if Fresh Arts was this. I'm maybe a little too young to know, but like, Remix Project I felt was some level.
My question is more like, where would you put the bag in an area that you feel systemically there is racism that is holding back your career? That's what I'm really trying to get and trying to get to the root of the issues that you may be facing. And if you were able to actually make that change, what would be that solution?
Well, I feel that I would put it in I started off with saying mentorship, but these are just the specifics of what sort of mentorship I think is really important and lacking.
Yeah.
I worked in, I met you, Quest, at Long and McQuaid. I worked there for 4 years and I interacted with a lot of people who had a lot of questions about these sorts of things and not knowing where to start is if you're really talented and you meet somebody who can do something for you, but that education is not there, then who knows what can happen to your career. So I do believe, like Densil said, it's the same answer, which is mentorship.
Yeah, it seems to be the running.
More specifics, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It seems to be the running one.
Can I say one thing?
Mentorship.
Can I say one thing too?
Yep.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say one more thing. I'm getting hyped. To piggyback what Haviah was saying. I remember once upon a time, there was the opportunity to travel. I know it's COVID, but let's just go on our imagination. And I think too few of us have traveled or been able to go to events, conferences, workshops to be able to really sit and learn and even not be afraid to ask what we may consider a stupid question. It's better you try, better you ask than not at all. And recognizing that that whole notion of obtaining a mentor, it could be a mentor, like a lot of my mentors aren't in the music business, but recognizing that it's business and just the way of thinking, it's kind of really change or transform the way I think about things, my outlook on things. And so if there was like for example, if there was some sort of bursary, travel, but some sort of education fund, you know what I mean, for businesses, for owners, for things that, you know, for young owners, etc., you know, where we could be like, okay, you know what, I want to be mentored by, you know, whatever, Phil Jackson, I don't care. So I want to learn that mind, but it's going to take some funds, you know what I mean? I want to apply fundamentally that sort of thinking to be under a guru or to have somebody stand in the gap for me. I think there's certain funds that could use a certain kind of way to really learn. And I like that you mentioned, Haviah, about all the contracts and all bookkeeping and asking those questions. I drove to meet my accountant in Oakville and he was like, no one comes to see me. I said, well, I wanted to come. I wanted to actually come, sit in your office. And it made a big deal. And when certain things were happening for my business, I was the top of his list for him to do certain things. I spent the time. Time is the most valuable commodity you could offer anybody. So when we could take time and be afforded the time, you see, we still need to be afforded the time. Some of us are working 9 to 5, can't be afforded the time, right?
Absolutely.
So just, you know, so that type of thing as well.
Yes, and to what you're saying, especially the importance of these grants, you know, and shout out to, because I know he's on there as well, but Gavin, on what he's doing with public funds and the idea of creating a fund and a grant that is specifically for music businesses and individuals who want to get into that, and paying mentors for their time is a really valuable thing. Making sure that a mentor feels like, listen, my time is not just something that is, you know, freely given, but that we also respect that time is really important. So definitely these are things that we're already seeing, you know, start with, and there does need to be more of that. Kerwin.
Oh, I have to say one more thing. I'm going to sign off. So one more thing. Yes, okay, I'm taking the opportunity to lean in. As you mentioned that about mentors and etc., is I really want to encourage the industry to not Hall of Fame artists like myself, like Cardi, like whomever, who's been around for 20 years. You know, I think oftentimes there's a bit of a throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's an assumption that they're okay. And yeah, we're doing well in our own way, but recognizing that, to your point, there's value in the wisdom and in the experience that could really could help the next generation to benefit in ways that I know I've experienced, where people typically look at me as the strong one. But I've spoken to Ian about this as friends on the sidebar, where it's like, hey, there was a time when I wondered, does anybody remember Jully? Does anybody ever, you know, will they think about me? Do they think about me? And I'm saying this on behalf of me and others, that, you know, I think we need to celebrate how we celebrate the Jay-Z's and the rest of them. Canada tends to be a bit of like maybe it's because we're Caribbean and all that, in the diaspora, so we don't really celebrate those who laid the foundation. But I think it's important to not forget that everybody needs a hand me up. Everybody at some point in their life.
1,000%. Kerwin, please let us know.
I just want to jump quickly. Julie, I think you said Kerwin just texted me. Do you have any final thoughts? He has to run because he has to get to the studio.
Kerwin, please.
My thing is more of a growth thing for me, especially with our industry, our music industry. I would take that bag and actually push that towards daily, weekly, monthly, yearly airplay, which actually helps Soca to grow, helps our music to grow. And within that growth, we all start earning more, from artist to writer to publisher. The whole industry itself now has a different level of value. It has more acceptance to the masses. They might get more of a chance to understand us. That's what I would honestly do with that bag, because as I said earlier, I don't think we are accepted the way we should. And I don't know what the reason for that is, but we are here and we are not going nowhere, and we'll be coming back hard. The more they push us out is the more we come, and the more we come with as a team.
On that note, I'd like to thank you, Kerwin. I know that you got to get off to the studio. Jully, you got to run as well.
Appreciate you.
I am running at 10 after, but I will sit back and listen.
Okay.
I love it. We
So
kept it longer.
I'm going to use the phrase that I've been using throughout this thing. Thanks, Kerwin. Plain talk, bad manners. We are here in front of the entire white industry. What is it that you want from the people that are in the positions of power to give you the things that you need in finality? Zaki.
Mike. Everybody take your mics off.
No.
In finality? As in, this is the last question.
Yeah, before Click goes to questions, yeah.
Right.
Somebody else want to jump in if she can't figure
Yeah,
it
maybe
out?
some. I'm like.
I'll step up.
Not
I'll step
Quest,
up.
what are you thinking? Denzel, you want to go?
Quest got it. Quest got me because I might even chip up on him. Quest got me.
Man. I would say the one thing I would say is trust. I feel like that's a big thing for me. Like, trust me. Like, if you want to walk in a space, if you want to talk to these people, if you want to build with these people, trust me. You know what I mean? If you're going to entertain the conversation with me, then let's entertain the conversation in general, and trust me to be the guy to have this conversation. Trust me to understand that I actually know what I'm talking about, because I'm coming from this circle, I'm coming from this community, I'm coming from this world. The same way, if I wanted to know about something specific that didn't pertain to me, I would trust you because you probably have more intel on that. I expect the same reciprocated. Trust me, let me be the one to lead on this.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Denzel? The culture.
And like I thought, Quest is gonna do it for me, man. What I would need first and foremost for the Black Rock alternative, whatever you want to call me, artist, I feel like I'm more in line with the Soca guy, is I need a home. I need a place in which I can be accepted for what I do and to be supported in what I do, which a lot of this is like LordQuest has said, is trust. I specifically need systemic changes within industries of influence. And a lot of that is going to be into representation. I need Black people to work in these things. I, bluntly put, culturally, having a conversation with somebody where I'm from that is located residentially where I'm at or grew up near there is easier to have than somebody that has no understanding of that at all. So having Black people in the building in positions of influence is going to be something that's very, very, very important to me. I'm going to need resources that are allocated out to organizations that support Black music to not be exclusively into R&B and hip hop. Like it is what it is. Like if we're looking at projects that are around, if we're looking at Black music as described, if we're looking at opportunities that say urban music, they're not talking about me. There's no home for me in those things. And there's no home for me in what they do either. So I'm definitely gonna need to be accepted amongst the community, and maybe that's for the for us bias conversation that I want in on. Definitely going to need it to be encompassing to different types of arts, and if it's world, if it's experimental, if it's metal, if it's country, if it's whatever, I'm going to need it to break the box. Living in this box is what's profitable to the other side of the industry, and that's why they want it to allow it to continue, right? So we do have to break that mold. I'm not going to ramble too much more, man. Thank you very much, LordQuest, and all of you.
Haviah, your mic.
My bad. Quest and Dens, they definitely hit on majority of what I was thinking, but yeah, I just think we're underrepresented in these spaces and overrepresented in the wrong spaces. And I want to see that shift. I think for me, I I feel like what I'm doing is hopefully adding to that shift of representation. But I think what I would need is to not feel as tokenized, which means seeing more people that do what I do or look like me and do different things, getting these opportunities. So I think it's increased opportunity, whether it's resources or whether it's funding, whether it's understanding. I just think the opportunity is the main thing. Like as Jully said earlier, we Black people, we're very creative and we have a lot to offer, but the opportunities need to be there. And I think on two sides, we need the infrastructure that exists to present these opportunities, and we also need to fight for these opportunities. This panel is a start for the fight for those opportunities, trying to figure out what are the questions that, or what are the issues that we're fighting? What are these walls that we have to pry down? And then we continue this, and we take these questions and bring it to these outlets. At the same time, whatever efforts we can do in our individual, as I was saying before, our individual circles to increase those opportunities, and I think it's going to take a long time. I do think that there has been some shift from the industry as I saw it when I was a child to now. But, it's definitely not happening quick enough. So I definitely think it's just those two sides of things. It's increasing opportunity in every possible way and demanding that change as well.
Okay, thank you. And Zaki, your microphone.
Yep.
And Jully.
I think definitely the importance of having representation, but like really the importance of that, like exactly what Haviah is saying, is demanding that change, or like, there's a need for that. So obviously it's an industry, like change it, those kinds of things. So many things that I feel like I'm doing right now wouldn't be able, like, I feel like if there were not people that understood where I'm coming from, where I'm from, able to catch points of references, those kinds of things, the nuances, all of that kind of thing, it wouldn't be able to function. I wouldn't be able to move forward in the way that I need to move forward with my artistry, with my, what it is. And so, yeah, it is important to do that.
Jully, take us home.
So I'm so happy I was listening to everybody. If I were to directly have access to ask the white people in power, what I would need them to do on today is to listen without offense, listen long enough, learn, and then teach the rest of your white people. Listen without offense, without all of that privilege seeping through your veins and your mouth, without all of that fragility. Listen long enough, learn, take the lesson back to your people then, right? And then take action. And take action, this might be offensive, but I'm gonna say it without disclaimer. Make the Black subject of change and support something that is permanent, and not hide underneath the BIPOC trend. I want us to focus on the B of the BIPOC long enough. Black. Like it comes to me all the time. Jully, we're doing so much with the BIPOC. I said, but what about the Black? Just Black, long enough. Long enough for those changes to be permanent, to be comfortable. Sit in your discomfort though. Sit in your discomfort. You might have doodle streaks. You might have doodle streaks in brief. You might have to have doodle streaks in your brief. Be uncomfortable. Sit in it. Sit in it. Because we've been sitting in our Black skin 42 years, right? So sit in it and take action. Listen, learn, and take action. Listen, learn, and take action. And that action is gonna involve resource. It's gonna involve some money, right? And that's my three things that I've been asking. I've been getting many opportunities come through, And it's great. It's great to be able to, with education and honor and experience and love and grace, say, hey, I'm in case you didn't know, not just my last name. I'm Black. And I don't know what it feels like to be anything but. But you could decide to check into my culture, jerk off my man, listen to my music, eat my beef patty, and then pivot and go back to your white world. I stay Black. Always. And so this is where I need my white peeps to really just check into that bit of education right there.
The listen thing is
all that
super important. I would like to, Ian, if that's all right, I'd like to share my perspective, if that's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Everything everybody said, I think, is dead on, but I'm going to be very specific because I feel like with what we're doing here, I need to point fingers. And I feel like what I mean by pointing fingers is like any record company, be it Sony, be it Universal, be it Warner, you can't just have a Black person working in a department and say that, okay, we have hired a Black person. You actually need to give them leadership skills and give them power. And power means finances. Here's a budget, make magic. We're giving you the power to do that. And if they fail, let them try again. And if they are successful, bring another Black person in and do it again. Don't just let the one person keep doing it, okay? The people such as the booking agencies in this country. The booking agencies need to hire a Black person in these booking agencies. If you do not know where to hire, go to Advance, go to people in the industry that you know and say, listen, we are listening and we want to bring somebody in. We want to mentor them, want to teach them all, everything we know, and we want to help them be the voice for your community. If you work at a radio station, the same damn thing needs to be done. You literally need to have, if you were playing hip hop, if you were playing Drake, if you were playing The Weeknd, if you were playing Jully Black, if you're playing Zachy, if you're playing Densil, if you're playing fucking LordQuest, if you're playing Haviah Mighty, you must have a Black person working in your radio station. And not just a voice on the air, but also inside. And if you don't know where to look, ask, because somebody will tell you who can fill those shoes. And if they don't know if they don't know the skills, put them in school. Give them the knowledge and foundation to actually be that person in our community that represents us in your station. Television, media. There's tons of writers, there's tons of people that are on the front lines, but we don't want people behind closed doors representing us and our voice. That needs to change. Why is all this relevant? Why am I saying all this? Because every artist here would be even further where they are with us behind them, pushing them there. You feel me? And so it's really important that you actually listen and hear what we're saying, that we're lacking representation in every mode of the industry. And think about how much more money you would make with us in those positions.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. And I started by saying that that Click is Martin and I'm Malcolm. To Julie's point, I want to address the allyship thing as I have addressed it throughout the entire series. Stop calling yourself ally. We will tell you when you're an ally. This allyship thing is very, very dangerous. The minimum amount of effort that it requires for a white person to say that they're an ally is fucking frightening. And I don't swear, but it's like, imagine that I just decided that I was going to be a doctor and I just called myself doctor. It's a ridiculous concept. So an allyship, as I've said throughout the series, is about not standing behind, not putting on a Black Lives Matter shirt, not putting up a black box, not standing beside, but advocating in front, standing in front. If you really want to do something in all of these areas that Click is, and everybody here has talked about, gaps in the financial systems, representation and bias from the media to Julie's access to sponsorship and endorsements, to representation in radio. Who is the music director who is deciding what the music sounds like on the radio that is detrimental to our community because he goes home to his house and does not care about the community. And then these radio stations will tell us that they are not community radio stations. IKEA is not a fucking environmental company, but it has to have responsibility. These companies are required. There are gaps in the revenue things. There's gaps in the absence of representation in the label means that somebody will be a bully and sign one of these artists to a label deal with a period of exploitation that does not allow for them to do certain things. Exploitation in 2020. That should be give you an understanding of what it is that they're going through in this industry. The way that these revenues, the royalties, the offstage sales, all of these things, mechanical licensing, contracts are written, all of these things, there's a requirement on your part. People who are watching this, I'm going to shake the table and Sam's going to complain. People who are watching this, you have a requirement because it is the right thing to do. So stop talking about allyship and start being about it. All right.
I'd like to thank Jermaine, first of all, and sorry for us coming in and
I'm sorry, Jermaine.
This is what I like.
We're very passionate today. There's a really good question that's in the Q&A that I love everybody to know about. They'd like to know what you think about the initiative that SOCAN has created with the first Black Canadian Music Award. The Black Canadian Music Awards will recognize and celebrate artistic merit demonstrated by Black music creators. Anybody want to talk about that?
Are they going to include anybody that's rock?
Yeah.
Good question. I believe so. I believe that it has nothing to do with any genre. I think they pick 5 artists and they give them $5,000. And I just wonder how you guys feel about it being called the Black Music Awards and just the overall initiative. How do you feel?
All right, I'll go.
Any of y'all can jump in.
Go, Dan.
Well, I'm teetering on the for us by us conversation, right? Black Music Awards represented by SOCAN. I'm just going to call it what it is. Are there Black people at SOCAN that can represent this in a way that they would understand what our community likes, wants, or can actually dictate what the award is?
To answer your question, yes, there's Black people in SOCAN that actually help make this award become possible.
Okay, is it Black skin, Black music? Is it the same Black usual suspects that are typically on these boards that have sometimes their own view on Black artists? Who are the Black people on the board?
I know that DJ Agile is one of the people on the board because he's been mentioned in all the press that I've seen about it. And he's definitely been pushing the envelope forward over there and trying to make sure that there's opportunities for Black artists.
And when does and what's the expiration? What year did your music have to come out?
I think
who are you aligned with?
Where can I get this money?
Are you a part of? No, it's not where I get this money. No, let me correct you. No, hear this. Hear me. It's not where can I get this money, because there's a lot of Black people in our business that are clout chasers. So they'll put on certain generation because they want the clout. Don't get it twisted. This is another panel, but I ain't afraid to drop it like it's hot. So I would love to know who's on the panel and who's behind the panel, giving the panel the decision making, who's voting, and all that stuff. Because is it Black skin? Is it the Black Skin Music Awards? Right. To Densil's point, is he invited? He's got Black skin. Right. Who's determining if it's Black music?
I think that's a good point. Personally, I don't know those answers. This is a question from the side that came in, but I think that whoever their jury is should definitely be Black people. I
think the jury should be Black people, and the jury should be generationally dense, because I've seen Black juries with the same Black people who ain't about certain Black people. And I'll keep it real on this panel, right? Because there's also the white people behind the Black jury that choose the same Black tokens that they think give the industry validity. And so if they choose he or she, most of all, it's a he and a he and a he. A lot of typical Black men from the business. And those Black men get on all the shows, get the grants, align with the white people, and they're the jury. So don't let Jully get started tonight. I stayed past the 7:30 cutoff part.
Yes.
So let me know who these Black people are, and I will talk the things, because not everything was said Black is Black.
And that's a point that I've also emphasized throughout this thing. There are often Black people who are palatable, or Black people who are likable, or Black people who are light
better word.
or Black
Likeable.
people who are down to serve the agenda of the people who are pulling the strings from behind the scenes.
The puppeteers. The puppeteers.
And this is a critical part of this whole tokenism conversation. Haviah pointed to the fact that she's often tokenized. I pointed to the fact that her picture was listed 3 times on one. I mean, it's good exposure, but you know what I mean? Like,
look, I had to ask them to take my picture off a Factor, one of them website there. All picture from 2009, not even braids, all weave. I'm like, brethren, could you guys take that down? You guys haven't funded me since how long? Whole other conversation.
Yes.
Okay. And one more thing. There's some Black people on the boards that are bitter, and now they have power to be a juror. And they're bitter because their career didn't go as planned. And so now they have the power to actually be a gatekeeper for their own people. So let's be mindful of who's on these juries, not trying to, cause dysfunction in our Black family. Mom says, don't talk what's going on in your house outside. But the question was, what do you think about the SoCan Black thing? That's what I think about the SoCan Black.
So
before you go forward,
another similar question I just want to go to is you guys' thoughts on the word, stop using the word urban. So somebody asked that question, do you wonder if it's good or bad for the identity of Black artists?
It's terrible.
I'm not included in it. They don't include me in it. I don't include me in music.
And to speak on behalf of Kerwin, who's not here.
I'm not included in it. I'm not included in any conversation of anything that has to do with Black, and I'm blacker than the Ace of Spades. I mean, what the fuck are we talking about? I'm not included in that discussion. So just for clarity's sake, I'm sorry, to get back to the SoCan thing, I would love to see it roll out before I judge it. I support all things Black. But urban, I think, is very, very detrimental. It only includes one type of music. It only includes one type of image of Black as well. And that's a problem. And I'm speaking from just a Black man perspective, a person that is ignorant as to what does urban music mean to a Black woman. I'm very, very interested to know what that means to you. What type of content are you expected to serve in what urban music is? What are they going to promote as urban? What is the popular music of urban music? And I think we know what it is. It's not going to include me. It's not going to include a certain type of content. It's not going to include a certain type of look as well, period, is my thought, my individual thought.
Well, I lived through the change. I lived through the change when Sean Desmond came on board. Love him. That's my homie. But when he came around, and I was unable to say Black music. My eyebrow was knit. I was alive for that. I was alive for when Much Music took away the R&B award, the year that it was Keisha, Krisha, Divine, in essence, all of that year, they actually took away the award and never brought it back. Ever. So it's interesting. Oh, the Junos.
Have hip hop single up here every year. Who knows?
Yeah. So urban, to be able to not be able to say Black music. Yeah. I mean, I continued saying I make Black music. I'm a Black person, so Black comes out of me. That's what I'm saying with Densil. That's what I was wondering about the SoCan thing. It's not about necessarily judging. Like, is it Black skin? It's so subjective.
And I think it's really, really sad in as much as it segregates us from ourselves. It segregates soca, reggae, rock music, Jully's ability to do rock, Haviah's ability to experiment, and we are the culture. we create every single thing that you see, but do not have the ability to determine how it will be presented or perceived. And it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Click.
Zachy had her hand up.
Oh, sorry,
Zachy
Zachy.
had her hand up though. Sorry, guys. Zachy, please go ahead. You're muted again.
She's like, no. I know that the word urban, it goes back to actually the 70s with Frankie Crocker at a radio station in New York. And it's very interesting that they used it to actually try to get because they knew that hip hop and R&B was actually getting huge numbers, but they weren't getting advertisers because it was considered black radio and had the term black around it. And so anything that the term black around it always puts us in a bad place. Like, and I feel like I don't want the word urban because it puts us in a bad place. I think the best way to address us as an artist as the genres they do. And what I'd hate to see, and what I feel like they're doing by using urban or using anything, is pigeonhole it into a bucket. And once it gets successful, then they take it out the bucket and put it in pop. And then they all of a sudden give it that term that, oh, this is popular. This is no longer in this bucket here. When really, that bucket shouldn't even exist. You should just be an R&B or soul artist or a rock artist and get the same respect and the same attention as anybody else in that genre.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, Zach.
Not only
Guys, one sec. Zach,
it's not only pigeonholing, like the word urban is exactly like, because people don't want to say black, right? But it's also offering it up to be non-black, if that makes sense. Urban, it's like black people only get urban and everyone else gets also urban kind of thing, right? That we're talking about, I mean, it is all semantics and that kind of thing, but if you were to say, I make black music, imagine a white person saying, I make black music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is the point I was actually going to make. It effectively separates the people from the culture, because everybody here eats Chinese food, but it's still Chinese food. Everybody goes to Taste of the Danforth, but it's still Greek food. Justin Timberlake makes black music, but all of a sudden it's not black music. Why is that?
Post Malone.
You know what I mean? Click, take us home, or Jermaine?
I think I don't want to, there's a lot of great questions, but I feel like we've been on here way too long already, and I don't want to keep anybody longer than they need to be. I want to thank everybody for their time. I want to thank you for sharing your perspective, your wisdom, your everything, and it's much appreciated, you know, and I encourage everybody who's watching, if you have not heard of any of these people, you've been living under a rock. You know what I'm saying? But Ian, any last words?
I'd like to thank you all. Jully, Zachy, Densil, LordQuest, Haviah. Thank you so much, Jermaine. We are missing Kerwin, Dubois, and TOBi and Tika. But thank you to all of you, and hopefully you can tune in same time, same bat channel next week.
At 6 p.m.
6 p.m. As we enter the area of succession and talk about how to get more Black executives into the space, more Black individuals into every aspect of the music industry. Past episodes can be seen at www.bdrb.ca. And thank you to CIMA and our sponsors for the episode. And we will be back next week. Sam, take us out. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.